What's up, cucks?
Yeah,
that's our new way of greeting people.
That's right. We fucking know. We know.
Yeah.
I'm on the wrong podcast, I think. I've got to.
Yeah.
I thought I recognized you guys, but I'm
All
cool.
cucks and sluts. That's our radio show.
This is the Broadcast Wreckers.
Oh, no.
Hi, and welcome back to the Podcast Wreckers. I'm your host, Adam Aragon, and I'll be here with your other hosts who will introduce themselves. Do your job.
Me first. I'm Joe Kroll, a.k.a. Johnny Chaotic. My room, it's cold.
Wow.
There you go. Fuck
That's an
you.
update. All right.
It's like I don't even know you anymore.
Whatever.
Hey, my name is Stephen Thomas, and I, for one, am overjoyed that the weather in Joe's room has finally changed.
Yeah,
Because it used to be real hot. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Now it's going to start. Joe, what's the weather report from your room today?
Ah,
Okay, so it is
Oh.
hot.
It was cold a second ago. You're full of lies.
Yeah.
My name is Cuck. You can call me
No.
Matlock, though.
Okay.
I'm a cuck.
Matlock cuckstick.
I just, what's strange
It
is
works a
like,
little too well. I don't know why.
my girlfriend's faithful to me, but like as I walk down the street, people will just start fucking in front of me and going like, "Don't you wish this was you?"
Well, you could be like,
I would date you, but I'm cheating on you. If I were dating you, you would be a cuck right now. And
well,
I'm
you
like,
could
this
be
is awkward.
you could be an aspiring cuck. Like my girlfriend won't fuck other dudes in front of me, but I want her to.
I
Like,
keep trying.
yeah.
I push her to every day.
Yeah.
Like, hey, honey,
Hey,
do you
so
want to go
many
out
guys,
clubbing
so
without me
much
tonight?
I keep installing Tinder on her phone.
This guy's cute. Swipe right.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do my homework.
I wouldn't mind watching him fuck you.
Yeah. Imagine him on top of you. That'd be cool.
It's just like, no,
The
I
cuck who
wanna be
takes it way
monogamous.
too far.
I love you. Honey, you don't know what you're saying right now.
So
If you really
yeah, I mean,
loved me,
you
would
always
cheat
hear
on me.
about. You always hear about successful cucks. You never hear about the guy who really wants his wife to get railed, and she's like, "No, I'm not going to do that."
Well, because it goes against it's like if you were a sadist, it's like that scene in Little Shop with Steve Martin and Bill Murray. You know, Steve Martin's the sadist dentist, and then Bill Murray comes in and he's a totally willing submissive to the point where there's no enjoyment to be gotten out of it because he's enjoying
a
it
sadist
so much.
and a masochist collide.
Right?
Yeah,
exactly.
do it. Yeah.
Yeah, hurt me.
Did
Like,
you
no, I
hear
want
about
to scream.
the recent little controversy around that? What was it? I think her name is Miriam Margolis, actress that was in Little Shop of Horrors. Recently published a autobiography, memoirs kind of a thing, in which she said, Steve Martin is great, but I didn't really love getting like hit and punched and doors slammed in my face, and I'd go home with a headache almost every night, and he just wasn't very like nice or apologetic or anything about it. And it was kind of a thing. And then Steve Martin
he was method.
Right, that's actually what she said. She said, I don't know if he was just being method because the character is like really violent and everything.
Mhm.
And then Steve Martin came out with a retort to it a couple days ago and said, like, I have to say something. I'm sorry, but I've never been anything but professional. I've always checked in with everybody that I've ever worked with in these types of scenes. Like, I do not recall any of this at all. And like, I think the director was coming to his defense as well. So it's crazy. Unearthing drama from 40 years ago.
Yeah, maybe it was just something to make a more interesting book, right? Like, because if it's the person from Little Shop of Horrors whom the biggest fan of Little Shop of Horrors doesn't even recognize her, then they're probably going to need some extra ammo to make that book interesting and buy-worthy.
Well, she also played a pretty memorable part in the Harry Potter franchise. She was the
was she
teacher.
Daniel Radcliffe?
That was her. Yeah.
Yes. She's the teacher.
She's a master of disguise. She is an actress of many faces.
The plant teacher.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
McGonagall.
No, Flitwick? No, something, I don't know. One of those.
Yeah, one of those. That sounds right.
I know her most from Ed and His Dead Mother with Steve Buscemi, which was an early Steve Buscemi film where his mother was a cannibal zombie and she was the cannibal zombie. I cannot for the life of me remember. I know that she is in it somewhere, but I can't place where in Little Shop she is because I know her face. I know the actress. I just watched.
Is she one of the doo-wop singers? There's not a lot of side characters.
No, look up
Apparently,
Miriam
she's one of the
Margolis.
nurses.
Oh,
yes, she's the nurse he punches in the face. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, she's his nurse assistant in it.
That's the whole thing. Is she's like, he actually punched me in the face, and he's like, no, I fucking didn't. And so,
I mean,
it's just crazy. Like all the running theme of Hollywood, like scandal, is things from 20 years ago or more. Like it's Danny Masterson, everything else. It's just like there's it doesn't matter. Like there is no such thing as what do you call it when things expire?
Right,
statute of limitations.
Well, and hashtag punch me too.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I mean, in which case, I think that's the thing to do is go like, it was 20 years ago. I'm really sorry. I was younger. I was stupid. I don't even remember it. But if I did that, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know if I mentioned this on the last podcast, but like
that's
Jimmy
how
Fallon,
you get out of a rape allegation right there.
Right.
Yeah.
But like Jimmy Fallon has
eat a little crow.
I don't know if I did that or not, but I'm sorry.
No, but I mean, at least, like go like if you don't remember it, say I honestly don't remember it, but it could have happened, and if that is the case, like I'm absolutely sorry. I was younger. It was 20 years ago, but like Jimmy Fallon's got the whole toxic workplace thing right now, right?
That's right.
And my thought is like if he just came out the day after that Rolling Stone article came out and said, "Hey, I recognize that I'm responsible for some of these behaviors. I totally admit I've had bad days at work. I've taken it out on everybody, and I'm going to work from here on out to make sure that everybody who's having, suicidal thoughts because they don't like working for my show, but it's one of the best shows they'll ever get to work on in their life, so they can't exactly leave it. I'll try and make it a good workplace."
That's the worst thing you could possibly say.
No, but I'm just bringing up like
shit they could ever be on.
Well, that was the accusation. Some people are escaping into dressing rooms and crying because they know that like this is the best show that they could. Most people dream to have their job.
They've reached the big time, right?
Right,
yeah.
But so they can't leave because that would be stupid with such a great opportunity. But they're wanting to kill themselves because it's just so toxic. If he had come out the next day and said, "I'm going to work on myself. I'm going to dedicate myself to making sure these things aren't an issue," and I admit to it,
I only glimpsed this, but isn't that what he did?
I hadn't heard of him responding yet.
I just very briefly read that he had responded and said, like, "I will make this better," basically.
Okay. Well, good. I hadn't heard that yet. So all I'd heard was the allegations.
I could be wrong.
I hadn't heard about the first thing, but
my point was come out immediately and admit it.
Disinterest.
To wrap up my point, come out of the gate, admit it, apologize, say you're going to do the work, and then everybody can be like, "Okay, well, we'll keep an eye on you. Thank you for admitting it." But you have publicists and lawyers in your ears telling you, like, don't admit to anything, don't say more than you have to. Right. Wait to respond until we see like all the
damage control.
Right, but if you wait too long, then it's like even if you respond 3 days later, it still seems like you were really sitting on your words and trying to like tone yourself down, like Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher.
I was just going to say, watching Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher doing backflips every time they say a sentence, and then they're like, "Wait, nope, we didn't mean that." It's like they just can't talk anymore. They're just they're fucked.
Mm-hmm. By the way, I'm looking at the report here, and it says after the magazine published its report Thursday, Fallon apologized to staffers in an all-hands Zoom call that same day.
Oh, good. Well, there you go. That's good. Now it's just a matter of like keeping your word if he's apologizing.
It's embarrassing and I feel so bad. Sorry if I embarrassed you and your family and friends. I feel so bad I can't even tell you. And he reportedly admitted to doing embarrassing things in the past, but never intended to create that type of atmosphere, yada, yada.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like too much of a boys club atmosphere or something?
Eat his heart.
I think it was more like if he was having a bad day, he'd take it out on the staff and stuff. So it
was kind of like an Ellen DeGeneres thing where he just would have toxic, messed up days. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sure.
Good old Jimmy Fallon, huh? I always knew it. I always knew he was a piece of shit.
I'm actually kind of surprised, right?
If he hadn't gone to them in a private Zoom call, if he had gone public and apologized so that we could all see it, then we wouldn't judge him. See, he should have
I
done
mean-
that. Screw the people
I mean,
that he
it's
hates.
reported.
He needs to report it to us, the viewing
He
audience.
has to crucify himself on the court of public opinion. Sorry, nay, on the crucifix
Yeah.
of public opinion.
Yeah.
Who talks?
He's not that funny. He's,
I
you
know.
know,
Yeah, it's like of all the people to get really
finally
worked
like
up
him.
about, it's like I did not want to get jazzed or disappointed with Jimmy Fallon today.
yeah, like with Ellen DeGeneres, I was like, well, at least I can respect her body of work. She's fucking
Mhm.
a solid comedian, you know. But like, you know, yeah, with Jimmy Fallon, it was always just like, well, he's a fucking
He's-
greeting card. Why do I give a shit?
He's famous for laughing at himself and not being that good.
Remember, that was his whole thing in SNL
Yeah.
when he was first there. It was just like, oh Christ, like here, let me see
It
how
was
long
like
is
the
it going to
beginning
take for
of
this
the
guy to
end.
laugh his own fucking joke,
Yeah.
which like a lot of people found endearing and adorable, and it always just fucking pissed me off. Like,
Well, it's
Did you
one of
guys
those
hear
things.
about? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, just SNL has always had that element of like, oh, it's live, and like they crack each other up sometimes, and sometimes that's the best part. But
Right.
it's like when you do that every single joke, then
Yes.
it loses its
Oh,
efficacy.
I love the scenes
was
where they're
exactly the
like
problem.
very, very obviously like doing it to them,
yeah, they're
like
trying to mess with
daring
each
them
other.
to fucking laugh. Yeah.
With him, he's laughing at his own joke most of the
Yeah.
time, as opposed to somebody's making him laugh. He's like, "This is so ridiculous what I'm about to
Yeah.
say,"
Yeah.
yeah,
and it took
happened
me years. Took me years
one
to like
time.
him.
Yeah,
And I
Sorry.
finally saw his musical parodies where he'd like do Jim Morrison or something, and I was like, oh, he is talented. Like he can do some stuff well. And then as a late night talk show host, I was like, well, I guess it's the format where you can laugh at your own jokes and you can always be smiling and it's not going to ruin everything. So I
Right.
like slowly grew to accept him, even though I had
Yeah.
like,
It was a better. It was a
marked
better
him
fit,
as
probably.
the beginning of the end of SNL was when he came on. Like that's where I stopped watching, and I just couldn't. And so
yeah.
Did you guys hear about the? I think it was like a battle on Twitter, people arguing whether or not Martin Short was funny.
That's so ridiculous. Yeah, I did see that, and
Like,
I
It's-
love him,
yeah.
but yeah, I have to say there's something to be said for that. But that's maybe what's funny about him is that he's not funny.
I
yeah, right. It's
I don't
so,
know,
that's
dude.
sort of
Kind of
his
his
thing,
shtick.
right?
Yeah.
The not funny, yeah.
He's
Like
good at being not funny. Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
hilarious. You know what? I think I think he's amazing. I think if you look at him in
I think
interviews,
Steven was going to say I'd fuck him. Just saying.
Yeah.
I think that almost came out of his mouth.
if you watch him in interviews, he is the best person for interviews you'll ever see. He's on
yeah.
fire for interviews. It's actually his best work is when he gets interviewed. That and fucking Jiminy Glick. I mean, Jiminy
yeah.
Glick is just inspired fucking satire. It's so good. His movies, there are times when you're just like,
Clifford.
okay,
Hello? Clifford.
you're
Three
being-
Amigos?
it's like, okay, you're being a
Charles Grodin was in that. We don't count those.
Okay.
well,
sure.
exactly. Fuck.
Charles
I need a
Can't stand
genuine
Charles
review of Only Murders in the Building
Oh,
because I have not seen it, and it's got Steve Martin and it's got Martin Short, right? Like
Right.
I was. Does anybody else want to go first?
I liked their two-man show. I'll say
I saw
that.
some of that. Yeah, that was good.
And they were good going off of each other. I swear to God, what the kid who started that whole rumor about Martin Short not being funny, I think he must be going just by his movies because some of his movies are total fucking dog shit. But
Yeah.
the man himself, if you fucking get him on a stage and talk to him for 5 minutes, like nobody improvs better than it's a sharp, mean fucking wit. You can tell he destroys other comedians like behind closed doors. He does it enough to Steve Martin on stage,
Mhm.
but like it's just searing. Like he just levels people. Jimmy Fallon, he fucks with him all the time. It's fucking awesome. And it's stuff that you want to say to Jimmy Fallon. It's
Yeah.
great. You know, he'll just be like, well, Jimmy, you fucking, like, just, I don't know.
Yeah, I saw it. He's like, yeah, it's hard to sell out as well as you have and still look this good. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's very quick. I haven't watched the new season with Meryl Streep, but I watched the first 2 seasons of Only Murders in the Building, and I was pleasantly surprised because I had gone in thinking, well, Steve Martin's not only pretty much like checked out for the past 20 years,
and probably over 80, but yeah.
yeah, but he also, like he said, he doesn't want to act anymore, and like probably after the show he's done, and but I was surprised because he's playing a straight character, which I don't necessarily usually like Steve Martin playing like the straight man, but he definitely has like some great moments. He does well as his character. Like it's good. Like if you like Steve Martin, it's probably one of the best things he's done in the past 10, 20 years. Since before Pink Panther, I would say I haven't really seen him do anything that's good. So
What's how's Martin Short in it? That's the
oh,
question.
he's great. Yeah, they're both great, and they obviously have that chemistry from doing their live show and stuff. So, and they
Yeah.
both produce it. I'm sure they have a hand in the writing the jokes and some of the humor. Like it's a smart show. It's well crafted, and they both do a great job. It's fun. I wouldn't say it's like 10 out of 10 great. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd rate it like a 7.5 and 8. Because just it doesn't, it's maybe like for an older generation a little bit too, just some of their humor because that's their age range, but it's
Yeah.
not like a show for old people. It's just like some of the
Not a
humor
lot, not a lot of Jerry Lewis and Catskill references.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
not that it's
dude.
not that bad.
I spent 4 days with my parents, and
Are you okay?
you know how actually my mom saw the tile for that on Netflix, and I was like, I heard that's pretty good, and she's like, that looks great.
Yeah.
So I think the target audience is being hit, but it's great because
Target audience, Steven's mom.
the algorithm for their Netflix was just all ancient shit because they're like they've been watching just like old
Columbo,
no
I
my
watched
dad
Columbo recently.
BoJack.
my dad watches Gunsmoke every night.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
Yeah.
How do you find Gunsmoke?
Right? So he watches Gunsmoke often.
What, like on
And,
Laserdisc? Like,
no, there's channels dedicated to that shit. And so anyway, like, and they'll watch old Western movies and stuff on Netflix. So I turn it on, and all these suggestions are from 30, 40 years ago or more. And then miraculously, I happen upon Dragnet from 1987 with
I was
Dan
gonna say-
Aykroyd and Tom
And that has a
Hanks.
joke. Oh yeah. I used to watch that movie.
the
as a
movie,
teenager.
or
Yeah,
Yeah, the movie.
Dragnet
Yeah, yeah.
the movie. And
No, Tom Hanks wasn't in the 1960s television show Dragnet.
He
I
was
think he
not.
was. Nor was
I-
Dan Aykroyd. They were in their teens.
I watched
probably.
a lot of Nick at Night, and so like a lot of like the period time of shows, like I just assumed that Get Smart and Leave It to Beaver were like a few years away from like Double Dare and Salute My Shorts.
Oh,
Like-
you were stupid. You were a stupid kid.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
so you're
still
dumb.
a stupid-
All right. Yeah.
I'm a stupid man now.
Yeah.
bit of,
Black and white.
bit of a cable television time warp going on there.
But actually, I was just thinking about Nick at Night the other day, and I was like, man, like, I mean, is that same venue there for people now, like, to see shows from
Still,
our era
yeah.
or from the 50s, or like, is
It's
anyone
still
bothering?
there. It's so buried with all the new content. Like when we were kids and Nick at Night was a thing, there was maybe 20 channels to choose from, and so if the best thing on was Mr. Ed, you'd watch Mr. Ed, even though
Yeah.
it's 40 years old.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, I mean,
my parents watch there's a whole slew of channels that are dedicated to old TV now, and so that's like what they're dialed into. Retro
What'll-
TV,
What'll
yesterday's
that look
TV.
like when we're their age? What'll that look like? Do you think when we
Dude,
flip on
I
our
was driving up on the
virtual Hulu AR glasses?
yes,
Nick at
I was
Night?
driving up on the 5 on the way back up, and I was like, let's try the radio. Fucking station was like, playing all the hits you remember from when you were a kid, from the 90s, the 2000s. And I was like, from the 90s, the 2000s, kill me.
Yeah.
Here's that old classic rock, Nirvana.
I used to listen to the oldies. Like the
crazy.
oldie station was my favorite when I was a kid. I would listen to the oldie station all the time, and those.
Yeah.
So if that was the 80s, and those songs were from the 50s and 60s,
It makes
I mean
sense.
that's the 2000s to us today, right? So
Yep. The 90s, yeah, for sure.
I saw this video that was inconclusive, but it was kind of asking the question, which is that every decade for a long time has had a very distinct look and feel and has changed dramatically. So if you
except
took someone
for
from
after 2005,
exactly,
I
yeah.
think.
yeah,
It's
and so
all pretty
if you
much been the
if you take anyone from a sitcom or a show in 1970 or 1980 or 1990 and swap them, they look like out of place. They look like they're
Mhm.
from another planet.
Mhm.
But from 2005 forward, you can pretty much take any decade and mix them, and it's like that could have been filmed last year.
Yep.
Like they stopped evolving or stopped being like dramatic shifts. I don't know.
It's just the fashion hasn't changed too much. Like there hasn't been any, like bell bottoms, right? Like bell bottoms, very, very bold statement in fashion, right? And everybody it was a gimmick. Everybody had them for a while, and then they were ruled obsolete. And people have tried to bring them back, and maybe in some fashions they still exist, but nothing's as like prominent as a popped collar or bell bottoms popping into regular fashion. Like if you looked at us today, what we're wearing, and we're not the most fashionable gentlemen, but still, it's like
Hey, what?
20 years ago we could have worn the same thing
All day.
and probably not.
Speak for
looked any
yourself.
different.
Joe's wearing an Armani wife beater.
Yeah, that's true.
And nothing else.
Nope. It's
Yep.
really weird to have like a wife beater, but nothing under.
It's really
like-
long,
Oh,
though.
It
It's
cuts
really
off at the
long.
navel, and then it's
Yeah,
just
it's
all
weird.
Franks and
Wow.
beans.
Yeah.
You got kind of the man in the cell, man in the
Yeah.
forgotten cell at the end of the hall look
Yep.
going on.
They stopped feeding me, but they didn't know where the cockroaches come in.
Yeah, it's got a good look going on.
Has anybody seen The Righteous Gemstones yet with John
I've
Goodman
heard
and
so
Danny
much
McBride?
about it. Everyone says it's amazing, and like sometimes when stuff is pumped up so much, I kind of
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
Like,
avoided
but-
it.
But I'm
avoided-
interested.
For years, I avoided it and had people, saying like, "Oh, it's so great," and the reason I avoided it was not only was my dad's health bad, but he's living in Missouri in the South. He's a Jehovah's Witness, and like a lot of the people on that show not only speak like they are from the South, and it's supposed to be a mega church family. But when they pray,
Oh, I
like,
didn't realize that. Are they
Yeah,
supposed to be like from a what do you
it's
call
modern
it?
day
Like an
mega
evangelical
Exactly.
church?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
They have this
Loosely
big,
based
all
on
the money goes into
Joel Osteen or something.
or Tammy Faye Baker and stuff, but it's
Hmm.
modern day.
Okay.
And so a lot of times when they pray and when they say things like that are religious, it's kind of a trigger for me because the religion got in the way of me and my dad connecting. And I kind of have some resentments. It caused a lot of problems in my life once the religion came in my teens, and my dad and mom argued all the time about religion, and my dad would drag me to the Kingdom Hall, and like there's all this resentment. So every time I'd see a trailer for the show, I'd be like, "Oh, I love those people. I love John Goodman." But it's like a trigger. Like I don't know if I want to hear
Yeah.
people praying in Southern accents, So I finally sat and watched it,
Yeah.
and it's solid. Like it's kind of like Succession if you've watched that, but with a comedic angle, more comedic, heavily comedic angle, and it's a religious family. But they're all idiots. They all do stupid things. They all get caught, doing awful things. And but it's also kind of like Schitt's Creek, where these characters you like hate almost, like they all are reprehensible in one way or another, but then you start to empathize as the show goes on. You see them make little choices that are out of character for them, and so it's like normally you would just be like, oh, this is funny because they're all idiots, and they are, and it never stops being that. But sometimes you sort of go, oh, there's some growth, or oh, they learned something, or oh, this is the angle that someone in that situation would approach it from, and it makes sense to them, and therefore I understand their motivation. Like I don't know, it's funny too. And John Goodman he's always great. They do some de-aging on him for an episode where he looks like young skinny John Goodman. Like they did a great job de-aging him for a full episode, and I don't know how they did. There was a wig, obviously. I don't know how much was computer, but like watching it, you're like, wow, it's like it's almost amazing to think that you could see some of your favorite actors who are old now just act like.
Speaking of
like they did back
solid
then.
de-aging, it took me a long
Indiana
time
Jones. No, sorry.
actually, I was going to say Indiana
That's what I was
Jones.
thinking about.
I hadn't watched it until 2 weeks ago or something like that.
Mhm.
So I put it off, and I was like, I don't know if I need to see them trot out Harrison
Right.
Ford and
We all know.
What did you think?
Had
Did
you
watch it?
had you watched the Crystal Skull?
I have, yeah. And
I
I
watched
watched
that
it,
too.
and
That's
I
my
regret it.
Yeah.
yeah.
That was pretty rough.
You mean
Um,
the best Indiana Jones movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean-
I've
that's what I
seen
mean,
it a
like-
couple of times.
Like
Very
that one was sort of like a turd in the punch bowl, and so I kind of thought like, well, if this is just another one of those, oh well.
The first
I will
half's
say
not good.
it was better. It was better than Crystal Skull.
Yeah, right.
Really?
Which
Um,
isn't saying
okay.
anything, but
Yeah, which a
That
low bar.
helps.
But I was
Yeah.
gonna say it's probably some of the most impressive damn de-aging I've seen. Like It's not perfect. It's never perfect, but like, damn, like
Well,
there
when
was
you're
that.
spending $300 million on de-aging for a movie, it better
Yeah,
be
exactly.
good.
What's
crazy.
what's
The
what's
thing
the
about it-
what's the best de-aging you've seen?
I just want to comment
Jeff
real
Bridges
quick on.
in Tron was
That was
actually
good.
the worst. Worst.
Oh god, that was
Oh, yeah.
terrifying.
Yeah, it
he,
was.
he was the uncanny valley in that movie.
He turned around that one shot, and it was just like
Remember?
wrong.
Well, that
I think I
actually
was with you guys when we watched
Oh,
it in
yeah,
Adam's
yeah.
garage, and we all went, "Oh!" It's so fucking funny.
Well, that's not fair because Jeff Bridges used to be made out of plastic.
Right. Right,
So
right.
they nailed
So-
it actually.
Yeah.
Far be it from me to judge. Sorry.
The Last Picture Show. He's just
That
like he's
and
a cube of
Arnold
plastic in that.
Schwarzenegger in I think
The-
it was Terminator
Genesis?
Apocalypse, or
I think it was
whatever.
Genesis.
Oh,
was the
Genesis,
one where
yeah.
they
Yeah,
de-aged
yeah,
him.
where he comes out of the Terminator making machine, and it's just like a rubber Arnold. Hello.
Yeah. Well, they
there
got
was
some
a-
other bodybuilder and then put his face on him or something.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, it was brutal.
That's where they had like they'd got Eddie Furlong's face like for 3.5 seconds during that movie. Like it was all CG. Like apparently they didn't cast him or didn't bring him in
Mhm.
because
That was
like,
the
if you're
newest
try-
one
if-
where they killed him off at the beginning, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if you're trying to but if you're trying to de-age Eddie Furlong, bringing him in at his current age doesn't really help.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
I
I,
mean,
I would
other
think they
than-
just put his face on a kid's face, like they do.
Well, they took so they instead of like actually having him on and motion capturing him or anything like that, they just like cut a bunch of corners and they
like,
just
you
took
have to shave
shots.
off the sides of
Yeah.
his face so that his old face
they just took
fits on
shots
it.
of him from T2 and like kind of
Yeah,
plastered
exactly.
it on a face.
Now, I want to say Dial of Destiny, the de-aging was good, except for, and this is the case with most of these movies where they de-age an old actor, when you see they've put the face on the physical body of the old actor. So like in Indiana Jones, there's a scene after the whole train thing. He's just walking away from the camera, and you see his body moving like an old stiff man's body as he's walking. And then even better than that, if anyone saw The Irishman, the Martin Scorsese Netflix film,
I heard that
with
was
De
well done.
Niro,
The
and
de-aging.
it was well done. But
it was
again,
well done. Yeah.
there's a scene where Robert De Niro, as a young man, is kicking the shit out of another guy. And the way that he moves, I don't know. Let me see if I can pick this up on camera. It's like
It's time to
he's
act this
moving
out.
up like,
Hey! Oh, my hip. Ah.
and
Yeah,
he's like, you can
where
tell
the other
this
guy's
old
like,
man,
why are
He's
you
like,
play fighting me?
do you
Why are
need
you
help? Do you
why are
need
you
help beating me up?
you're play beating me? I don't want to be
His
play
body's
beaten.
so stiff. It's like watching Grandpa like go to town on.
Well,
a
that's a
young
good point. Like, if they're gonna
ruffian.
de-age someone, should they have them act out the scene?
No,
take their
not for physical stuff.
take their face and then have a body double act out the scene
Exactly.
and then put their face on that.
That's the way to do it. But then, I mean, I'm sure that gets into the territory of the whole AI, like the whole labor strike right now about AI. If you can just use someone's face on someone else's body, why do you even need the actor for anything? So, maybe voice lines or something, but still, to be able to use their, like, that's where I think it gets into a gray territory where it's like, well, you still need the actor present on set playing themselves. But yeah, anyways, de-aging is fucked up. We shouldn't do it.
Stop it, Hollywood.
And that's my platform.
Yeah.
Well,
What was
I
that
thought it was.
movie with what's her name from House of Cards? Robin Wright. What was that movie?
Oh yeah. Being Robin Wright or whatever, or something like
No,
that.
it's not Being Robin Wright. It's like the Council, I believe it's called, the Council. But the whole movie is about how she sells her image to Hollywood so that she can basically retire. They're like, okay, well, when you retire,
Oh, the Congress. Yeah.
the Congress, that's what it means. And so she basically sells her likeness to the movie industry.
Like
so that she
ad
can
infinitum,
retire.
and so that she can just be
Like 20 years later, she's like the biggest star in Hollywood, but she's not able to collect royalties, I think, and it's all just a matter
she's
of
not I don't think she's even like allowed to make public events or anything like that.
right. Yeah, they're like
That movie gets very surreal, so it's kind of hard to pin down, but it's actually pretty cool. Like, and it's trippy as hell.
Mhm.
That sounds like a decent argument against AI.
Yeah,
Sounds like a
well,
great movie.
it's. I think it was based on a sci-fi novel from the '70s or something. So the premise was like there for years, but it's now
Nice.
relevant. If you watch that movie, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly what these strikes are.
Well, the tech hasn't quite been there until now. It's finally there, and it's like, oh shit! Now we can actually scan people and sample their voice, and maybe not 2 years from now, maybe not 5 years from now, but 10 years from now, probably turn that into a convincing performance and have 25-year-old Robert De Niro shooting up Darth Vader.
What
yeah.
movie is that?
Just so
Reservoir
I never
Dogs.
have to leave home again.
I don't know if anybody's
Raiders of
heard
the
about.
Lost Wars?
Has anybody heard about? I can't remember his name. I'll have to look it up. But the creator of the Fables comic books, which is like the world is like a noir film, but everybody's from a fairy tale, basically.
Yeah.
So like the main character is a detective, but he's the big bad wolf, and so
Oh,
he
yeah,
turns into a wolf, or he just is a regular human. It's like a werewolf, and then Robin Hood and Snow White and all these fairy tale characters are having like noir-ish problems, and there's murder and crime and stuff. Anyways, this comic book series has been out for 20 years. He just made it. Public domain.
Yeah.
So he was like, because DC, I guess, owned. Is it DC? Or
Yeah, it was
Marvel?
DC.
DC
and
owned the rights to like make properties based off of it, but they weren't paying him what he was owed for his creation. So like the Telltale made the game series a few years ago, and he didn't collect any royalties or whatever. So he basically was like, all right, I'm just going to make it public domain. So like they can still make stuff.
It was kind of a big middle finger to the publishing.
And he was like, I think everybody who has an IP should do this, where it's like for 20 years you hold on to the IP, and then if somebody else wants to take it over after you're done with it for the next 10 years, that's fine. But after that, everything should go into the public domain. And he's trying to set a standard so that, and he can still collect royalties off the stuff that DC makes after it's public domain. But everybody else in the world has the right to make whatever content they want based on his universe that he created. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I've been wanting to make a hard noir Pinocchio.
And now you can. And you can call it from the Fable universe, which is now open IP.
Yeah, it's like, well, let's just say it's not his nose that grows when he lies.
Well, you could do that. You could say, I mean, you
It's
could
his
literally
eyes.
say,
Sides grow.
Like what they hurt,
Yeah.
I had never seen that person. Just eyeballs popping out.
That is good news. I was working on this whole Humpty Dumpty paid $40 to sit on a horror thing, and so now that I know I can run with it,
you could do it. And you could say that DC produced it.
All the king's horses couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. What were the horses supposed to do?
They don't have fingers. They
don't have fingers.
They're not medically trained.
All the king's men couldn't do it, but the horses ain't putting it together either.
They just included them. They're like, you know what? Like 20, 40 men, and even their horses gave this a shot.
They broke Humpty Dumpty, and I mean they broke him.
And have you ever seen a horse with glue?
When he hit the ground, he was fine. It was the soldiers and the horses that broke the man.
Yeah, he was just had a little crack down the middle, and then they tried to fix him, and
split him open.
Turned into
somebody was like, "Hey, did you hear he was hard boiled?" Yeah, you ever tried that? It feels real.
I heard it was a great fall. Great fall.
Yeah. I want a dark, sex-laced, DC universe Humpty Dumpty now. That's my new goal.
Yeah.
What other fairy tales would benefit from? What
He's
other
a gross Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah, there you go.
Call me Dumpty Humpty.
It's got to be like Quentin Tarantino meets Robert Rodriguez, like making fairy tale movies.
I just watched the whole John Wick series back to back.
And I stabbed 3 mailmen today.
I stabbed a lot. I just was taking pencils and was stabbing all around me. Whoever came by. No, it's.
I killed 2 people at the grocery store.
my takeaway is that, like, at least for me, I'm sure had I seen them in the time frame that they came out,
Yeah, like a year or two apart.
yeah,
Yeah.
with a year or two in between each time, it would have been like going to the ballet, but with bullets, you know? And it's like, wow, the
ballet
choreography, oh, it's beautiful and everything. But watching them back to back and being sensitive to, like, not just violence, but like extreme violence and extreme, you know, just torture, porn kind of stuff, like I can't watch. That movie,
Sure.
like, watching the first one, it's like, oh, I'm good. And then you watch the second one, it's like twice as many deaths, and they're all like twice as gratuitous and twice as fast. It's like impressive, but you're literally just watching bodies fall every 5 seconds throughout the movie. And
Right.
it gets to the point, like, I looked at my face in my phone reflection just to see. I was like, my face is doing a weird thing. What's it doing? And it was this. It was like, because it's like, even when it's just 2 seconds on screen, like someone getting a pencil in their ear and their temple and then the back of their neck or something, you're like, like,
Well,
I'm just,
you watch like 12 straight hours of that too, which is like,
well, right. I was like, I'll
Yeah.
just watch them all. I want to watch the fourth one. And
I'm
missed
either
2 and
going to be
3, so-
desensitized or ultra sensitized.
and I feel like that would have been the perfect movie.
Sensitize the shit out of myself right now.
It's like it was-
Sensitized.
Now I
feels
see
like-
a pencil and I vomit.
It feels like it was written with 14-year-old boys in mind, you know, like,
Oh, yeah.
not just
Yeah.
in that it's immature, it's actually well written, it's well choreographed, it's well, like, shot, and the sets are amazing. Everything's really quality about it, but it does have that, like, ultra cool style, like what you think is
Bro.
cool when you're a teenager. And
Yep.
it just feels like a little immature, but it's well done. So I can't say, like, oh, this is just, you know, this is
Bro,
some
we're having a
little boy
John Wick
space.
bar crawl. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, are you?
Bro.
Bro.
Bro. It's a little broy.
But I
I think
assume
that
most
movie's a little
bros are
bro-y.
like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Look how he killed
There's
him.
a guy-
You know?
I know a guy that uses it as his profile picture. And I'm always like, I always want to say, like, "What's up, John Wick?" I haven't done it yet.
I want to use John Wick's puppy as my profile picture. See if anybody gets it.
It's, you know, that shit, and like Born Identity was kind of a predecessor to that, where
Mhm.
you got the ultra violence and the novelty of the ability that he's like a perfect human weapon and can use whatever's in his environment to quickly kill somebody within 3 seconds or a
Is
whole
it
group
just-
of somebody's.
Is
You
it
know?
just me? Is it just me though? Because like I feel like Born Identity, I loved it. I thought it was amazing. I thought it was really good. It was just the kind of action movie I wanted.
Mhm.
Every
I
fucking
liked him.
every sequel, the other 3 movies, I was like, just didn't
Yeah, well,
didn't
they
do
were
it for
just
me at all.
Making money. John
The
Wick,
ultimate
Yeah.
is Jack Reacher.
I can't.
Have you ever
I
seen
can't
anything
say-
of that?
There's only
No.
2 of those. There's only 2 of those, right?
There's
Was
a
there the
show,
mov-
though.
What was the
And
movie?
Like,
Oh,
there's
the
a
show,
show
yeah,
now
yeah.
with
Tom
the guy
Cruise,
from The
right?
Office.
Was Tom
like,
Cruise in the movie?
No, you're thinking
Yeah.
of you're thinking of the
I thought
Tom
Tom
Clancy.
Cruise. Tom Cruise was the original in the first Jack Reacher movie. It was Tom Cruise,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
And
Yeah,
then,
that's
then
what I'm
there's
saying.
like a show, and like as far as like if I'm 14-year-old boy,
Uh-huh.
I want to be Jack Reacher. He's
Right.
the ultimate because he's
Yeah.
the guy that walks up to a like a girl getting talked to by a guy, and he's got all the right things. Like some cops chasing someone or whatever, but he knows what to do. Like he's the epitome of that.
Does he
My
always
friend-
make that face when he does
Yeah,
it? 'Cause
he
it's
does.
pretty-
My friend-
Steven's talking about John Krasinski and Jack Ryan, which is the Amazon.
I apologize
Oh.
for that.
Yeah. How could you
How
get
dare
those
you.
confused? Such
I know.
different films.
Jack Ryan, Jack Reacher, they're nothing alike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently,
Both
Jack.
produced by Amazon.
Yeah. Jack Reacher. That's the Tom Cruise one, right?
Yeah.
So my friend's mom has read the Jack Reacher books, and she's like a big fan of his. But
I
apparently,
actually,
in the
I
books,
actually picked those up. I haven't read them yet though.
in the books, he's described as being like 6'6" or something.
He's like he
and
is in the
buff.
show, like a huge hulking
Yeah.
dude. Yeah.
Right, but then Tom Cruise.
And then Tom Cruise.
Oh,
Yeah,
they used
picked
some
Tom,
movie magic.
so- yeah. Oh, did
They
they?
used some
Did they put him
cardboard
on, like,
boxes.
two apple crates.
Yeah.
To stand on.
Well, I see. The thing is, I had no context from the book, so when I watched Tom Cruise and Jack Reacher, I was like, "Oh yeah, that's awesome!" Like, just
he's
totally.
a little guy. That's cool.
Yeah.
He's a little guy. He kicks ass.
You know what it is?
It just didn't occur to me that I was disappointing anything. Like, I just didn't have an expectation. But then I read about what he was supposed to look like, and then how he looks in the show, and I was like, "Yeah, that's actually a lot more what it's supposed to be."
Well, the casting for Jack Reacher, all they had to do was have a little sign out like they have in front of a roller coaster, and it's just you have to be under this height.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And you'll have a chance.
And Tom Cruise was
the
only one.
If you're over 5'4", you're out of the fucking movie.
Nobody else qualified. They all were above the line, but Tom Cruise walked right under that.
Just
hand,
a bunch of
right under the finger.
Badass looking
much clearance
dudes that are like all 4'8", 4'9" at best, but just ripped and just rugged, but like so adorable.
Yeah.
Well, Alan Richardson, I think, is the guy who plays him now in the show.
Now I want to see Alan Rickman play him. Can anyone do Alan Rickman as Jack Reacher?
I only recognized Alan Richardson from Smallville as Aquaman. He was Aquaman in the Smallville show, and
I don't care.
Which no one else has seen or cares about. Those are facts.
But yeah, he's like what every 11-year-old boy wants to be. That's like the hardcoreness that like.
So wait, are you implying that
it's like what Indiana Jones was to us when we were kids? Like somebody who can go around kicking ass, and they're smart too. They're
I know,
like
but Joe,
the ultimate man.
But Joe seems to. I get that, but Joe does seem to be implying an added nuance in that Mr. Reacher also has like additional sway with the ladies. Because what
Indiana Jones had sway with the ladies.
John Wick is like a sorrowful widow, right? He's just shut down.
He's not trying to get laid. Yeah.
Right. Jason Bourne is just like, I'm schizophrenic. I don't have time for that shit. Or he had like some.
He had like a bit of a love interest.
That's interesting.
But it was one consistently.
I don't think anyone directly flirts with him in all four of those John Wick movies. Like, there's women
assassins. What's up with Jack Reacher?
Jack Reacher's aloof, and so he's a bit of a kind of brush him off like ladies' man.
He's too cool. He's too cool.
He's too cool for it.
Okay.
Like there is a romantic interest in the first season of the show. I haven't seen the second one yet, so I don't know. But it's definitely done like at an arm's reach type thing, like where it's like, no, he's too lone wolf, You can't cage Reacher. He's a bird, man.
Right. And yes, you are talking about
Jack Reacher.
14-year-old boy gold right there.
Yeah.
For sure.
So
let's talk more about Fortnite.
Well, I was just going to say to transition. What were your favorite movies as a teenager, maybe that you've grown out of, or you think that might have been influenced by your age at the time?
Debbie Does Dallas originally felt like an epic,
Deep
and
Throat,
now
for sure. Deep Throat was the first movie my parents took me to in the adult movie theaters, and
every one of them I try to watch. Like, I get fucking 20-30 minutes in, and I'm like, oh no, racism, I forgot. Oh no, massive misogyny, I forgot.
That's just watch Crocodile Dundee. This guy's saying things I can't say anyone.
My childhood is built on a misogynist, racist pile of lies.
Yeah, I know, it's brutal. I mean, even Dragnet, when I watched Dragnet at my parents' house the other night, Tom Hanks does not look good. He does not age well in Dragnet. He is like kind of a ladies' man douchebag kind of character, and has a lot of like just misogynist, kind of sexist, shitty jokes, and like it's not the greatest movie, of course.
What was your question again specifically?
I watched it all the time. Oh, just movies that you've grown out of, maybe.
Oh, movies you've grown out of.
More influenced by the age you were.
Van Damme movies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
they were like the best thing in the world when I was young, and now I'm like,
never gets old, right?
That's true. I still go back and watch Bloodsport.
I know. I was just thinking I could watch
sometimes.
I could watch Bloodsport, and I could probably watch Cyborg.
Did you know that Mortal Kombat, the video game, was originally supposed to be the Van Damme video game? they
I think I heard
planned
that.
on the creator was like, because they just added Van Damme as a character in the new one, and he's like, I've been technically waiting to do this for 20 years because the original pitch for the game was Van Damme the game, and
That's awesome.
and he wouldn't give permission back then because they hadn't made any games before that, so they just turned it into Mortal Kombat. That's what.
And so Johnny Cage became Johnny
Yeah,
Cage.
right?
The
right.
rip off discount.
Exactly.
Van Damme.
Johnny Cage.
Let's see, movies I grew out of. Let's see.
And now Mortal Kombat's bigger than him.
Mm-hmm.
Who would have thought?
That's rough.
Oh, I tried to watch Groundhog Day, and
Oh, really?
There's
I
nothing
showed that
wrong
to
with that
Michelle
movie.
recently,
Don't
and
shit
she
on that.
loved it.
It's one of the most brilliant scripts of all time.
it is.
Yeah,
and
you're wrong, Stephen.
Yeah.
If you grew out of
Whatever
that,
you
you
have to
grew
say,
you
it can't be
grew you
negative.
grew wrong.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know. Some of it just was tinny.
I
Some of it
knew
was
what
still
to
great,
expect.
but-
For some reason, I wasn't surprised by any of the plot twists. I've seen it 20 times.
Yeah.
No,
think-
I gotta say, I totally that's your that's your prerogative, Stephen.
But
But
you're
like
wrong.
I did, yeah, but you're wrong.
okay.
And no, I
Understood.
watched, I rewatched that. First off, I love that movie, and I've rewatched it many a time. But my wife had never seen it, and so I showed it to her like a year or two ago. In fact, I think it was like a double header of that and Scrooged. It was like
Mhm.
you need your Bill Murray
Oh,
education.
nice.
Scrooged.
Very nice.
Scrooged is so amazing.
So imagine I just shit on Scrooged for you. That's how I feel.
Oh,
Okay. Understood.
It's more of a New Year's
Okay.
movie at best.
God
I
damn
tried
it.
when
I
I
see
started dating.
Now
when
I see how it feels to be fucked by a man in the ass. Is that what speaking of John Goodman, do you
Yeah.
know how it feels, Larry?
So I did
Fucking
the same
Max
thing.
yelled that at the top of his lungs at Aleworks one night, and
Hmm.
right across from a young couple and their like junior high age kids.
And everybody
And,
was like, "Yeah, Lebowski!" Because
Everyone did that, and then the woman leaned over and said, "Could you guys not do that?" was
Could you
like-
stop being yourselves?
Yeah, and it was a very poignant moment of like, "Gosh, I'm an alcoholic."
and that's when
Nice.
I quit drinking.
Yeah.
So
At
I
least
did
I
the
think
same
I
thing.
did.
I did the same thing as you, Adam, where I showed it to my girlfriend a couple years ago. But for years, I'd been trying to pitch it to her. I was like,
Yeah.
"It's a great movie. It's a great script. Like it's cited as being one of like the perfect scripts in a lot of script writing books I've read." And she was like, "Oh, that I don't know." And it turns out she thought I was trying to push Caddyshack on her because Groundhog Day
Oh.
sounds
Yeah.
like it's the
Bill
Groundhog
Murray and the
movie
Groundhog,
Right.
and the, yeah.
That makes
and
sense.
Bill Murray. And so like I was like, finally, like after 3 years of going like, okay, one day, and I didn't know that she was thinking it was Caddyshack until I put it on. And she was like, "Oh, this isn't the movie I thought it was." I was like, "Well, what movie you're thinking?" It's just Caddyshack. Oh shit! Yeah, no, I wouldn't show you that.
Yes. No, that's not particularly good.
Yeah.
I was gonna say another one I think I grew out of, which is like sad to me that I grew out of, is well, a lot of Jim Carrey stuff like Ace Ventura. I loved Ace
Mhm.
Ventura.
That ending is very non-PC nowadays.
Oof.
Yeah, the crying,
That
is
crying in
rough.
the shower.
That
like,
is
the
Well,
rough.
Sam
not
thing.
because of the political correctness, just
Right.
like that humor is very. It spoke to me a lot when I was 14. It
And
doesn't
it's been
speak to me
done
as
a
much,
million ways since then. Like
at 40 or whatever. But
Yeah.
now, Ace Ventura 2, that's a different story.
oh yeah,
When-
that's still
when Nature Calls
that's
is
still
still-
Emmy Award winning. That's great. Yeah.
For sure, one of his best roles.
Liar Liar still holds up. I think that's one of his best, honestly.
That one holds up a little better because it's a little more grounded. Like it's a little more real. Like
Yeah. And it
It's-
just
it still
stays in
could
that
exist,
one lane. That's what I like.
Mhm.
It could be like a play, like
Mhm.
you hear that, Hollywood? Stay in your lane. Steven's watching you.
That's right.
More
That's
Liar
right.
Liar sequels and Stay in Your Lane.
Yeah.
I was such a
Tried
diehard
like
Jim
Groundhog Day.
such a diehard Jim Carrey fan when I was a kid that whenever he was sharing the screen with someone else too much, like when he wasn't the sole focus of the movie, like Dumb and Dumber, right? I went and saw it, and the whole time I was just fuming that he was having to share screen time with Jeff Daniels. I was
Yeah.
like, I want more Jim Carrey. Why is he not saying every line in the movie? And then as I grew, I was like, oh, I still think that movie's pretty brilliant. I haven't watched it in a while, but it's still one of my favorite it's like a perfect dumb comedy. I feel like a lot of those jokes land and just get funnier with time, but I haven't seen it in a while either. So,
here's a question for you in reverse. Are there any movies that you watched when you were young that you were too young for, and you're like, oh, I didn't like this, and then later as an adult you were like, oh, this is fucking good? The one that comes to mind for me is Meet Joe Black.
You didn't like that when you first saw it?
When I first saw it, I was pretty young. I mean, it was a long time ago.
It's 3 hours long, too. It was on
it's 3 hours long. It's Anthony Hopkins being dramatic. Like, I was just like, it's kind of tuned out.
It's a love story. Yeah,
I tuned out.
It has the best amount of line.
Yeah,
line.
Well, I went back and I just on a whim watched it a couple years ago, and I was like, "Wow, this is fucking great."
And then Brad Pitt does like Jamaican speak, and you just turn it off.
Score the RE.
Oh, sister. Yeah, okay, no, I'm done.
Does he really?
Well,
wow.
Like in context, it makes sense because he's supposed to be like a supernatural like version of the death or the devil or something, and
sure. Yeah,
and so
still,
he has to it works in canon of the show because he has to communicate with everyone in ways that they would relate to,
right.
But yeah, it was a choice they wouldn't make today, I don't think.
When I was a kid, one of the only VHS tapes we had laying around to watch over and over again for me was Being There with Peter Sellers. So I watched Being There as a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old, like on multiple watches. Has anybody seen Being There before?
No. Sorry, who's in that again?
Peter Sellers.
Just anyone else, or?
Shirley MacLaine and the dude who plays the dad in the Problem Child movies.
John Ritter?
No, John Ritter's dad in those movies.
Oh.
He had like an older guy. You'd recognize him from a million things in the 80s, but anyways.
Sure.
Regardless, the premise is basically Forrest Gump, like pre-Forrest Gump. He was raised, he was a gardener for a wealthy man. The wealthy man dies, and this guy's just grown up as a gardener, as a child, being raised by the maid of this rich man all his life, like into his 40s. And then suddenly the rich man dies, and he has nowhere to live. So he's like out on the street with absolutely never having even been out of the house, really. And all he knows is from television. So he's like obsessed with TV. It's based on a book, but it's a great movie. And it's like, if you've seen Forrest Gump, it's got a similar kind of like, he stumbles into these rich people's situations or political situations. And like, he's saying things that only apply to like what he knows about gardening. And people are taking it as like a metaphor and going, wow, that's beautiful. I've never heard it said that way. You're absolutely right. And like, they think he's a genius, but he's really like, he's just not on there.
Does that fall under the category of movies that you didn't like that much when you were young and that you grew to?
Well, that's all I could think of because it was a movie that I didn't even understand fully until I was an adult, but I liked as a kid and I related to because I liked TV and this guy didn't know much about the world and was going out into it. So I kind of watched that movie over and over as like, I can relate to this character, even though a lot of the situations are adult. They're talking about politics sometimes, but just if you're a kid and you're relating to this guy who's pretty much like a big kid who doesn't understand things, you're like, oh, well, he doesn't understand what they're talking about either, but it doesn't matter. Like, that's fine. I relate to the character even more because I don't know all this adult stuff going on around him. He gets seduced and he just doesn't know what's going on. She's like laying across him on the bed and he's just watching TV. He's like, I like to watch. And she's like, oh, you like to watch, and he's talking about TV, but then she like lays on the ground and masturbates on the floor next to him. He's just like sitting
he's
there.
Like, could you keep it down?
Yeah, he's just sort of like keeps focusing on the TV, and she's like has the best orgasm of her life. Like, wow, I've never done that before.
Done what? Nice. Anyway, we're coming up on an hour, so we can actually get wrapped up soon. But yeah, it's been a meandering, directionless episode about talking about movies and stuff.
You know what? It's 53 minutes in, and it felt like 5. So
that's breezy, right?
Not to the audience, but to us, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, to the poor assholes listening to this.
Who knew? Who knew we were a bunch of Hollywood gossipy bitches? That's
yeah. That we are a bunch of catty hoes.
Armchair opinions. That's what we have.
One thing I must say, I know earlier we had said that 2005
this isn't
and on.
about eugenics, right? Sorry. Anyway.
Remember 2005 and on? That
Yeah,
argument.
No, it's all a blur.
Yeah.
So the only thing I say is maybe we might suffer from just having a male perspective in that, and there might, if we reached out to a woman, that they would maybe be able to indicate things
Maybe
to
we'll have a
us.
woman on the show
Woman.
one day.
If anyone knows any womans,
Woman.
If there are womans in the audience, please feel free to comment and give us your opinion. We value your opinion.
we would love to have you come in here and estrogen it up.
If there were more room on the screen, we would have a woman, but we'll have to get rid of one or two of us and replace us with a woman.
We'll avert our eyes or whatever it is.
I can't help but think that somebody with a little more fashion sense than us and stuff like that.
Someone besides middle-aged white men.
Yeah. Would maybe be a little more in tune with the changing times and
my wife beater.
Our team is the same as our demographic, Stephen, which is 40-somethings wearing glasses with white privilege
who don't watch podcasts.
That's right.
Who don't listen or watch any other podcasts, so we have no context if we're doing this horribly right or horribly wrong.
That reminds me. Are you wearing glasses now, Coulter? Do you wear glasses?
Yeah.
Let us know.
Yeah, because if you're not, what are you even doing here?
Yeah.
You're not our demographic. Shout out to Coulter, our number 1 through 3 fan.
He's our number 1 fan.
Yeah, and
my new pickup line at bars is going to be "Play dumb jut woman."
I got the reference. Yeah. Thank you.
Woman.
Bringing Star Trek Next Generation into the table.
Woman. Okay.
All right. Well, we have been the Podcast Wreckers, and we're here to wreck your podcast. Remember that you can find us online at podcastwreckers.com or your podcast platform of choice, or under Matlock's hair. He's been growing it out, but under there is the Podcast Wreckers HQ, and you can get it. You can get it if you reach out.
Here we are. There's Steven and Joe and Adam's back here.
Yep.
And this is a zit, so that's not me.
Just don't look at that. Yeah. Shout out to our host today, Stephen Thomas, Joe Kroll, Matlock Sumstig. I've been Adam Aragon. Fuck you. Good night. All right.
Wow.
Good night.
That's rude.